So, good morning, students, and we continue once again with Merchant of Venice. And we had been doing the Act 3, Scene 4, as far as I can recollect. That is, we had done up to page 102. We had done in our last class, we had done from page 100 to 102. So, 102 brought us to Act 3, Scene 4. I mean, near Act 3, Scene 4. We had not yet started with Act 3, Scene 4. We were still in Act 3, Scene 3. So today, let's finish first with Act 3, Scene 3, and then we will proceed with Act 3, Scene 4. So please take out your textbooks as we get ready for today's class. So here we are on page 103, and our class is now about to begin. I hope all of you are ready with your textbooks. In case if you don't have your textbooks near you, no problem. You can at least look at the screen, and on the screen you have, I am zooming in so that you can see the entire text of what I am teaching. So in the previous scene, we had seen the discussion that was going on. This is an intermittent scene where we get to learn that Shylock has already got Antonio arrested, and Antonio is being taken to the taken out of the jail, in fact, and is being taken somewhere at his request by the jailer, and Shylock does not like it, and he scolds the jailer. So here the two friends, or rather Antonio and his companion, they are talking about the possibilities of what could possibly be the reaction of the Duke of Venice. See, Salarino was telling Antonio that he is sure that the Duke will never grant the penalty of the bond and will not allow Shylock to take the penalty. But Antonio had just started telling Salarino that the Duke cannot deny the course of the law. So that is where we had stopped. The Duke cannot deny the normal course of the law. The law must take its own course. And then Antonio goes on to say what is on your screen now. For the commodity that strangers have with us in Venice, if it be denied, will much impeach the justice of the state. Meaning to say that the rights, commodity refers to the rights. You can see alongside, it's explained, the rights which the foreigners or the strangers enjoy together with the regular citizens of Venice. Now the foreigners here refers to Shylock and people like Shylock who are Jews and who have not been originally the citizens of Venice, but who have come to Venice for business and have stayed ever since. So these foreigners, they also enjoy the same rights. The law is equal for both the Venetians as well as for the foreign settlers. So that is what Antonio is talking about here, that if it is denied, if the rights which the foreigners enjoy together with the actual citizens of Venice, if the rights are refused, if it be denied, will much impeach the justice of the state. If it is refused, then it will be an accusation against Venetian justice. Much impeach means it will be an accusation. That means the justice system or the judicial system of Venice will be criticized. An accusation will be brought against it if the foreigners are not allowed the rights they deserve in equal terms, just as the citizens of Venice do. So this is what Antonio is saying. And then he says, since that the trade and profit of the city consisteth of all nations, because the trade and prosperity, profit here means prosperity. You see, the meanings are all explained in the explanations alongside the text. So you should always refer to the explanations and you should try to understand. So what Antonio means to say is that if justice is denied and if the law is distorted in favor of a Venetian citizen, then it will definitely cause the foreigners to raise a finger of accusation against Venetian law or Venetian justice, because the trade and profit of the city depends on international trade relations. That is the reason why this cannot be done. See, Venice in those days was an important business center, and as you see in case of Antonio, so also maybe a few others like him, and then there are merchants who don't own ships but they are also into foreign trade, because foreign traders and foreigners and ships from different countries of the world would come to Venice, and there would always be this uh, uh, exchange of trade between the traders, the foreign traders, and the Venetian traders. So it was Venice in those days, even today. In fact, Venice was actually an important international trade center. So the law had to be very uniform, and the law could not be partial. It could not be partial or in favor of only the citizens of Venice. In that case, the foreign trade would be seriously hampered, because foreigners would then hesitate to come to Venice to do business. So that is what Antonio is talking about here. And then he says, therefore, go. Therefore, let it be. Therefore, go. These griefs and losses have so baited me that I shall hardly spare a pound of flesh tomorrow to my bloody creditor. So, the following day is supposed to be the trial. The very next day, when this scene is taking place, the next day is supposed to be the trial of Antonio. Trial means the case will be put up in the court before the Duke of Venice, and then the Duke will pass his judgment as to whether or not Antonio is guilty and whether or not he has to pay the penalty according to Shylock's bond. So Antonio is saying here that these griefs and losses, I have suffered so much of loss. My ships have all been destroyed. None of my ships have come back. I have suffered a great loss in business, and then this situation right now that I have been arrested and I am being forced to pay up for the borrowing of 3,000 ducats by means of paying a pound of my own flesh. So he says that I am already so weak and thin that I shall hardly be able to spare a pound of flesh tomorrow to my bloodthirsty creditor, bloody creditor, that is Shylock. So I'll hardly be able to spare a pound of flesh to my creditor. So I am so sick, I am so weak, I have grown so thin, and I have become so tensed that I'll hardly be able to give a pound of flesh as penalty to my bloodthirsty creditor Shylock. Well, Gowler, on. Well, Mr. Jailer, let's move on. Let's proceed. Pray God Bassanio come to see me pay his debt. I just want to pray to God that Bassanio may come to see me discharge his debt. I just hope and I just wish, I just want to keep hoping and wishing that my friend Bassanio reaches here in time to see me pay his debt. And then I care not. And after that, once Bassanio is here, I don't care after that if I live or if I die. Because ultimately, if I have seen Bassanio, that's going to be my ultimate satisfaction. My ships are gone. Now I have to pay this penalty. And I know while paying it, I'll probably die. So my last wish is just to meet my best friend Bassanio. I just hope that he arrives here in time to see me pay the penalty to Shylock, the pound of flesh that he is asking for, and then I don't care after that what happens to me. So with that, Jailer, Solarino and Antonio leave the scene. Now we come to actual Act 3, Scene 4. So I told you that was an intermittent scene which gives us an idea about what is going on in Venice in the absence of Bassanio. We were seeing only Belmont until before this, and now we know what is happening here in Venice. Now see, Act 3, Scene 4, the introduction is before you. In this scene, the themes of loyalty to friends, disguise and deceit form the subjects of this scene. Portia conceives of a plan to rescue Antonio from the clutches of the Jew. She entrusts Lorenzo and Jessica with the charge of her house. She sends a messenger to Dr. Bellario in Padua, seeking from the eminent doctor. Here, this doctor refers to not a physician but a doctor of law. That is, a learned lawyer who has a PhD in law. So, Portia, in the meantime, is making preparations. We already know from the previous scene that Portia has given money to Bassanio and has asked him to go, and Gratiano and Bassanio, Gratiano and Bassanio and their attendants, they have already started their journey from Belmont back to Venice after receiving Antonio's letter. Now, when they are gone, immediately after that, Portia hatches a plan. And what is that plan? We have already had a glimpse of that where Portia was talking to Nerissa. Anyway, her plan is to also travel to Venice. She wants to come to Venice, and she will not come as Portia. She will in fact be disguised. She will take the disguise of a young lawyer. And in those days, please remember, nowadays it's not uncommon to find women lawyers. Just as you see men in this profession, so also you see women in this profession. In fact, in every profession. But in those times, things were quite rigid and the society was quite orthodox. As a result, law was only a profession of men and not women. So now, if Portia has to come to Venice as a lawyer, she has to first of all dress up like a lawyer, and secondly, she has to appear like a man. And with her, of course, her all-time companion Nerissa will also be coming to Venice, and she too has to dress up like a man. So Portia hatches a plan. Her plan is to borrow a letter of recommendation from Dr. Bellario, who happens to be Portia's relative, who lives in another place called Padua. And then not only just to get this recommendation letter, but also borrow the lawyer's dress and the lawyer's clerk's dress. So Nerissa and Portia will dress up like lawyer and lawyer's clerk, and then they will give their appearance in Venice, and nobody will be able to recognize them. Now here, before we begin with the scene, although this is going to be very interesting, let me also tell you one more thing, that in those days when this play was written and when this play was being enacted on the stage in the Globe Theatres, that was an era, the Elizabethan era was something quite different from what it is now. Acting as such was also supposed to be done only by the males and not by females. It might seem surprising, it might sound very odd, but then we are talking about the Elizabethan era some 400 years from now. In England, situation was different, as I told you, just as in case of the lawyer's profession or in case of any other profession, so also in case of acting. As a result, all the female characters, the roles of all the female characters in drama were normally played by men. Now, so now we see that Portia and Nerissa, they are getting ready, but before Portia leaves Belmont, she wants to hand over the responsibility of her house and her servants to Lorenzo and Jessica. You remember that in the previous scene we had discussed that Lorenzo and Jessica had arrived at Belmont accompanied by Salerio, who was bringing the letter for Bassanio from Antonio. So now Lorenzo and Jessica will be looking after the house, and the servants are also to be instructed accordingly that they should treat Lorenzo and Jessica just as they would treat the master and mistress of the house. And with all preparations, now let's see what else is said in the introduction. She entrusts Lorenzo and Jessica with the charge of her house. She sends a messenger to Dr. Bellario in Padua. So this is that Dr. Bellario who happens to be Portia's relative. and seeking from the eminent doctor, eminent means famous, doctor of law, a letter recommending her to the Duke of Venice. Now, if Portia goes and dressed up like a lawyer, she goes to Venice and she meets the Duke of Venice and says that I have come to preside over the case. She will not be known to the Duke, and naturally the Duke may not allow her. So she asks for a letter from that renowned doctor of law, Dr. Bellario. She then gets ready to go to Venice disguised as a lawyer and Nerissa as her clerk. Now remember, I was talking about there was an interruption in my video because of some reason. So anyway, I was just talking about the fact that women were not allowed to act in drama in those days, just as they were not allowed to participate or take up any kind of profession which were meant for men. Nowadays the situation is different, the scenario is different. You have both men and women in almost every profession, but here we see that Portia is getting ready to go to Venice dressed as a lawyer, and that lawyer's profession is a male profession according to the norms of what it was like 400 years ago. Now the thing is that why did William Shakespeare decide to do a thing like this? He could have easily created another character, male character, as the judge or as a lawyer who could have pleaded the case in favor of Antonio or could have been instrumental in saving Antonio's life. But he doesn't do that. William Shakespeare instead gives a twist to his plot and makes Portia the lawyer. The reason is actually something else. It no doubt adds fun to the entire episode of the play, but at the same time it also fulfills another very important purpose. You see, what used to happen is that whenever this particular play was staged, the male actors they would be playing the roles of Portia and Nerissa. As I was telling you, boys with unbroken voices. In adolescence, the voice starts breaking and then it becomes mannish. But before that, when the voice is still not broken, boys, young boys who don't have facial hair, they are quite young, they are teenagers, early teens. So these boys were generally used to play the roles of women characters. So now these boys, they were made fun of by people because they played women's roles. So that is why these actors, these boy actors, they demanded from the producer and director, that is William Shakespeare himself, that they should also be allowed to appear in the play as men. Do you understand? It was their request that we also want to give our appearance on stage as men, because after all we are men, we are not women, and people make fun of us. So give us a scope or a chance, at least in one or two scenes where we can appear as men, at least so that people don't make fun of us. At least we can tell people that yes, look, see, we don't play just female roles, we also play male roles. So we are actors, we are adaptable to any kind of role. So they should have something to say to the people with whom they associate. They should not become objects of mockery. So this being the situation, William Shakespeare therefore improvised some roles in his drama to give them a scope to play male roles. Now particularly in Merchant of Venice, not in all his plays, but in many plays we find that the females play the roles of males. Now the female characters, actually what is happening is that it's a male actor playing the role of Portia and another male actor playing the role of Nerissa. But now when they come to Venice, they dress up like men, and so there is no problem at all to give the makeup and to help them dress up as men. So this was the reason behind. And also if we look at it from the point of view of the main plot of the story, we can see that yes, it is a female who ultimately saves the day for the merchant of Venice. And who is that? That is Antonio. So that is why A.C. Bradley, a very famous critic of Shakespeare's writings, had once said that Shakespeare has only heroines and no heroes. A very famous line said by A.C. Bradley, that Shakespeare has only heroines and no heroes. Why did he say this? Because very often we find in Shakespeare's plays, the women characters take the lead role and they ultimately become the most prominent above all the other male characters. In this play, you can see Shakespeare has created the character of Portia with such a dominating, such a prominent, such a highlighted, you can say, set of qualities that she becomes ultimately the lead character, especially the trial scene of the play. So that is what we are going to witness now. Anyway, now this is the preparation. This scene is also not very long. It's a preparatory scene before Portia leaves Belmont. So Portia, Belmont, a room in Portia's house. Enter Portia, Nerissa, Lorenzo, Jessica and Balthazar. Who is Balthazar? Balthazar is actually a servant. What kind of servant? Kind of messenger. And is a very faithful to Portia and very obedient and also very loyal to her. So Portia, Nerissa, Lorenzo, Jessica and Balthazar. Lorenzo says, Madam, although I speak it in your presence, you have a noble and a true conceit. Madam, although I am saying it in front of you, you seem to have a very noble and a very true understanding. You have a great understanding nature. Why does Lorenzo say this? Because he has seen how Portia has immediately dispatched Bassanio after knowing the contents of the letter. She is really able to understand the need of the situation, and so Lorenzo is praising her. Of godlike amity, and you have such a godlike friendship. Your nature of friendship, your friendly nature is something very divine, which appears most strongly in bearing thus the absence of your Lord. So you are maintaining that friendship even in the absence of your husband. Lord here means husband. In those days it was customary to refer to husband as Lord, and husband would refer to the wife as lady or my mistress. So those were the common terms. So in the absence of Bassanio, you are still treating us in such a friendly manner, although you don't even know us properly. We have just freshly arrived. We are complete strangers to you, but just because you know that we are friends of your husband, you are treating us with so much of kindness, so much of generosity and so much of friendship. So even in his absence. So this is, I must say, really praiseworthy. So he is appreciating her. But if you knew to whom you show this honor, how true a gentleman you send relief, how dear a lover of my lord, your husband, I know you would be prouder of the work than customary bounty can enforce you. But if you only knew to whom you have shown this honor, meaning Antonio, you don't know that person to whom you have shown this honor, just for the sake of your husband, because you learned that he is your husband's friend, you have allowed him to go immediately. What a great honor you have shown to that man whom you don't even know. So if you only knew that person to whom you have shown this honor, how true a gentleman, what kind of a true gentleman he is, to whom you have sent such a great relief by sending him his friend in the time of crisis, that too with so much of money, to rescue him, to free him from the clutches of the cruel Jew. How dear a lover of my lord, your husband. And if you only knew that gentleman meaning Antonio, how great a lover of your husband he is, my friend Bassanio, and your husband Bassanio is loved very much by that gentleman. He is such a friend of Bassanio. If you only knew that person, I know you would be prouder of the work than customary bounty can enforce you. If you had any idea about all this, I know that you would feel prouder about what you have done than any customary deed or act of generosity would have made you feel proud. So the meaning is explained here. You would be even more proud that you had done this deed than your usual acts of generosity. So Portia says, I never did repent for doing good. I have never repented or felt sorry or regretted after doing good to others. I have always felt happy after doing good to people. Nor shall not now, and therefore I shall not repent or regret that I have done something good. For in companions that do converse and waste the time together, because such friends, companions who talk and spend time together for long hours, they can sit and talk and they can spend time together, whose souls do bear an equal yoke of love, who have in their souls an equal amount or load of love for each other, an equal quantity, which is like a load inside the heart, inside the soul, of love for each other. There must needs be like proportion of lineaments, of manners, and of spirit, which makes me think that this Antonio, so he says, or rather she says, that people who can spend time together and talk for long hours together must have so much of love inside their souls for each other that they are actually similar by nature. They love each other, you see, like feathers flock together. There is a saying in English. Friendship only occurs when two people have similar qualities, similar likes, similar dislikes, similar tastes, similar mentality. So only then is friendship possible. Not every batchmate of yours can become a best friend. You have those select few who are very close to your heart, one or two. The rest are all batchmates, classmates, or acquaintances. You know them because you see them every morning when you come to school. You sit in the same classroom, so you know them. But are they really good friends of yours? Not necessarily. If you are asked to name a few friends, you will obviously name the ones who are nearest to your heart as your friends. Maybe just one or two names, or two or three at the most. So that is what Portia is talking about. That when two people can spend time together, talk together, and spend long time together, waste time together, they must be having equal amounts of love in their souls for each other. There must needs a like proportion, meaning to say there must necessarily be the same quantities or proportions of lineaments or characteristics, spirit, mannerism. These qualities must be similar. Only then they can become so close to each other. Which makes me think that this Antonio, and that is what makes me think that this friend of my husband called Antonio, being the bosom lover of my Lord, who is a very good or intimate friend of my husband, must needs be like my Lord, must also be to some extent just like my husband in his qualities. I am judging his friend by his qualities. Why? Because similar people as I told you, who have similar tastes, similar likes, similar dislikes, similar tastes, only they can become good friends. So here, by means of Bassanio, I am trying to judge this Antonio. And she goes on to say this, that if I love Bassanio because of the fact that he is Bassanio, for his qualities, for his goodness, for his various aspects, then I must also love and respect, though not as much as I love my husband, but I must also love and respect a friend of my husband who is similar to him. And therefore I must do something to help that friend who is in many ways like my husband. He may not be 100% just like my Bassanio, but at least to some extent he is like Bassanio. There are qualities in him which make him closer to Bassanio. That's the reason I have decided to send help. So, if it be so, how little is the cost I have bestowed in purchasing the semblance of my soul. Hence, if it is really so that he is like my husband, then what little price have I paid? I have hardly spent anything. The price that I had to pay, that is, I had to immediately send off my husband as soon as he arrived here and selected the right casket. I had to send him off. That is not, I don't consider it to be a heavy price that I have paid. Nor do I consider sending money as much required to free him from the clutches of the cruel Jew as a big price that I have paid. It's only a small thing for me, because ultimately it is the person who matters, and what we do for him when he is in crisis, that is what matters. This money and sacrificing our togetherness, all this is not a big price. So in purchasing the semblance of my soul, here the meaning is explained. According to Portia, lovers must be like each other in soul. Lovers in the sense friends, in this case Antonio and Bassanio, and that close friends must also resemble each other. Therefore Antonio must resemble Bassanio, whose soul resembles Portia's own. So you understand the connection. If A is equal to B and B is equal to C, then A is equal to C. If A is Portia and B is Bassanio, they love each other because they are in many ways like each other. And then if Bassanio and Antonio are also good friends, intimate friends, then there must be some similarity between Portia and Antonio also. Mark it, what I am saying. If Portia and Bassanio have common interests and common qualities, because of which they love each other, and if Bassanio and Antonio are best friends, that means they also must have some common qualities. Then if we take those common qualities and make what you call a Venn diagram intersection, and we can sort out the qualities, we can say that there are similar traits both in Portia and Antonio. So this is what she's trying to say. Understand, that's why I'm taking so long to explain this. There should be no confusion. I'm sure now I have been able to make you understand up to this much. So then she continues that in purchasing the semblance of my soul, one who resembles my soul, I have tried to purchase him out of the state of hellish cruelty. By paying money, I am trying to purchase him or remove him from hellish cruelty. This comes too near the praising of myself. Anyway, it is coming very close to the fact that I am almost praising myself, which I should not do. You see, we know that Portia is a very humble, simple-minded girl, and she does not like to praise her own self. Self-praise is something she does not like doing. So she is saying this, that therefore no more of it. Therefore we will not talk about it now. Here are other things. Listen to my instructions. There are other things I want to tell you. Lorenzo, I commit into your hands the husbandry and manage of my house. Lorenzo, I give the responsibility of the management of my house to you. You will be the manager. Husbandry means one who takes care of the management. Husband in the family is the one who earns the bread, looks after the family. So husbandry comes from there. It's a word derived from the role played by the husband in a family. So I give you the responsibility of the husbandry and manage of this house when I am gone, until my Lord's return. How long will you be managing it? As long as my husband is not back here. Then the real master of the house will take over. Till then, you look after this house. For mine own part, I have toward heaven breathed a secret vow to live in prayer and contemplation, only attended by Nerissa here. She does not tell the truth to Lorenzo and Jessica as to where she is going. She is telling them, she's telling a lie. Portia is a virtuous lady, but telling this lie does not make her a sinner, because she is telling this lie for a greater cause. She does not want anyone to waste her time in trying to stop her from going to Venice. She wants to rush to Venice to save the life of Antonio if she can. After hearing from Bassanio's mouth all about Antonio, she is now desperate to go to Venice and save Antonio. So she says this lie, and this lie should therefore not be considered as a vice. It is not a sin on her part, only that she wants to keep it a secret that she is going to go in disguise to Venice. So I have made a prayer to heaven, breathed, or I have made a prayer to heaven, that in the absence of my husband, I will be spending my days in prayers and meditation, contemplation, meditation. And during that time, there will be no one else with me except my attendant Nerissa. So I and Nerissa, the two of us. And where will she go to do the prayers and do the meditation? She says that there is a monastery 2 miles off. So till the time Nerissa's husband and my husband do not return, I will be going to a monastery which is situated at a distance of 2 miles from here. 2 miles is approximately 3 kilometers. So from Belmont, 3 kilometers or 2 miles away, there is a monastery, she says, and there we will abide. What is a monastery? A monastery is a religious place. It is a place where monks live, monks and nuns. What do? They live a religious life in praying to God. So she says that I am going to that monastery and I will be there with the nuns and the monks, and I will be spending my days in prayers. I do desire you not to deny this imposition. So Lorenzo, I really wish that you will not say no to my request. This imposition, it's a kind of imposed task. I am putting this burden on you. I hope you will not say no. I hope you will not refuse to take the responsibility of my house, the which my love and some necessity now lays upon you. Because this is a responsibility which you must now take, because it is necessary for me to go, and also because I love you as friends of my husband. So out of love, I urge you to take this responsibility in my absence and look after my house. Lorenzo says, Madam, with all my heart, I shall obey you in all fair commands. Yes, madam, with all my heart, I shall obey everything that you tell me to do. Anything that is a fair command, anything that is a good order, good command, I am ready to carry out or obey. Portia says, my people do already know my mind. Actually, Portia has already told the servants that she is going away. Though maybe also to her servants she has not revealed where she is going. She must have told them the same thing, that she is going to a monastery. So my people refers to her servants and attendants and all those who are in her house. So they already know what is in my mind and will acknowledge you and Jessica. And so in my absence, they will acknowledge or accept you and Jessica in place of Lord Bassanio and myself. They will accept you as their master and mistress in my absence. And so farewell till we meet again. And so goodbye to you till the time we meet again. Lorenzo says, fair thoughts and happy hours attend on you. I wish that you have good thoughts in your mind, and I wish that you have happiness. Your time is spent in happiness during the time that you are gone. Jessica says, I wish your ladyship all heart's content. So along with Lorenzo, even Jessica wishes Portia the fulfillment of all her heart's desires. Portia says, I thank you for your wish and am well pleased to wish it back on you. I am thankful to you for wishing in such a way, and I am also very happy to wish it back to you. Fare you well, Jessica. Goodbye to you also, dear Jessica. Saying this, she dismisses them. Jessica and Lorenzo leave the scene. Where have they gone? They have gone to that part of the house, Portia's house, where they are now supposed to be staying. Maybe they have a room, they have been given a room, so the two of them leave the scene. Now Portia turns to Balthazar. I told you Balthazar is a very loyal and obedient servant come messenger of Portia. So Portia now speaks to Balthazar and says, now Balthazar, as I have ever found thee honest, true, as I have always found you to be very honest, very truthful, so let me find thee still. So let me again find you to be very honest and truthful in your duties towards me. Please fulfill this task. Take this same letter. Here, take this letter. She gives him a letter in an envelope. And use thou all the endeavor of a man in speed to Padua. And then make all possible effort that a man can make to reach Padua as fast as you can. See thou tender this into my cousin's hand, Dr. Bellario. So now we know what relation Portia has with Dr. Bellario. Dr. Bellario is the cousin of Portia. So please go and give this letter to my cousin, Dr. Bellario, who lives in Padua. And look what notes and garments he doth give thee. And after that, take whatever letter he gives you and whatever dresses he gives you. He will give you a letter in an envelope and he will also give you some dress materials. Collect those things from him. After he reads my letter, he will give you these things. Collect those things, bring them, I pray thee, with imagined speed. And once you get the things from him, quickly bring them to me with imagined speed, meaning to say as fast as you can, as fast as our imagination can possibly work. Come as fast as possible unto the tranect. Here the meaning is explained, the jetty or the place, the landing place where the ships and boats come and stop. So bring it there. I will be at the jetty of the harbor waiting for you. To the common ferry which trades to Venice. Bring it to me. I will take the common ferry steamer or the ferry boat which carries passengers from Belmont to Venice. So I will wait for you at the jetty of the harbor of Belmont. I will take the ferry boat from there after you bring me the dress materials and the letter, and then I will be gone. Waste no time in words. Now don't waste any more time in speaking. I have already told you what to do, just get going. But get thee gone. I shall be there before thee. I will be reaching the jetty before you reach the jetty. So it is understandable that Padua is not very far from Belmont. It must be within a mile or two from Belmont, and so it won't take very long for Balthazar to go all the way to Padua to the house of Dr. Bellario and give him the letter of Portia, and then take another letter which he gives him and also the dresses. Those dresses are the dresses of the lawyer and the lawyer's clerk, which Portia and Nerissa would be wearing. And in the meantime, Portia will get ready and will proceed to the harbor and will be waiting there for Balthazar's return. Balthazar says, "Madam, I go with all convenient speed, as fast as I can. I will go as fast as I can." And saying this, Balthazar leaves the scene. And now Portia says to Nerissa, "Come on, Nerissa, I have work in hand that you yet know not of." Come on, Nerissa, there is some work to be done which I have to do, about which you still don't know. We'll see our husbands before they think of us. In fact, we are going to see our husbands even before they get to think of us. Nerissa says, "Shall they see us?" Nerissa is wondering, oh my goodness, what is she saying? Will our husbands see us? Portia says, "They shall, Nerissa, but in such a habit that they shall think we are accomplished with that we lack." Yes, of course, they will see us, but they will see us in such an outfit. Habit means dress. So we will be wearing such dresses that they will not be able to recognize us. They will think of us to be something which we are not actually accomplished to do. Here the meaning is explained. We are equipped with the qualities of men which in reality we lack. So they will see us in the dress of men and they will think of us as men. I will hold thee any wager when we are both accoutred like young men. I'll prove the prettier fellow of the two. I can have a bet with you. I will hold thee any wager. I can have any kind of bet with you, any amount of money. I can hold a bet with you that when we are both dressed as young men, between the two of us, I will prove to be the prettier fellow, smarter. Prettier here means smarter. You can see the meanings alongside. I'll prove the prettier fellow of the two and wear my dagger with a braver grace. Now it was customary that young men would always carry or wear a dagger or a sword in those days. So I will be wearing my dagger in such a way that it will be very graceful and also very brave to look at, and speak between the change of man and boy. And my voice will be like that of a boy whose voice has just started breaking. He is speaking with a kind of harshness in his voice which is neither that of a man nor that of a boy. You cannot clearly state whether he is a man or a boy. So I will speak with that kind of a broken voice, with a reed voice or a sharp voice, and turn to mincing steps into a manly stride. So instead of walking with shorter footsteps like women do, I will walk with longer footsteps just like men do, and speak of phrase like a fine bragging youth. And I will talk about fights. Phrase are fights, just like a boastful young man, and tell quaint lies. And I will be telling fanciful or imaginary stories or lies or tales which are not true. How honorable ladies sought my love, which I denying they fell sick and died. So I will tell lies that I am so sought after. Honorable ladies want to get me as their lover, and I deny, so they fall sick and they die. So I will be speaking or telling such lies. I could not do withal, then I'll repent and wish for all that I had not killed them. So, meaning to say, I could not help it. Literally, I cannot do anything with it. It is beyond me. I did not love them, so I refused them and they died, and I'll feel sorry that they died because of me. So I'll express my regret. And 20 of these puny lies I'll tell. It says that I will say such Several lies. 20 means not exactly 20, it can be more than 20. So I will tell such lies that men shall swear I have discontinued school above a 12-month. I will say such things in such a way that other men who will listen to me will start thinking that I must have left school just about a year ago. I am so young and I have finished my school education and I have just become a young man after leaving school, and I am therefore telling such boastful tales which are not true, because normally a school boy will tell such tales. So that is what I will be doing, she says. I have within my mind 1,000 raw tricks of these bragging jacks. So in my mind I have such schoolboyish crude tricks which I will practice, which I will display. I will be bragging and boasting and displaying such talent. But come, I'll tell thee all my whole device. So Portia is just joking with Nerissa. She's not going to tell lies and brag about how many honorable ladies fell in love with her and she rejected them, and then they died. They fell sick and died because she rejected them. All these are just for fun. She is saying all these things to Nerissa. Actually, she is going to carry out a very serious business when she goes to Venice. So anyway, she tells Nerissa that come along. I will tell you my whole plan, my entire plan I will be discussing with you when I am in my coach. So they have to take a coach. What is a coach? It is a carriage drawn by horses. In those days there were no motor vehicles. So horse-drawn carriages were used to go from one place to another. So as we get into the coach and we move towards the harbour from where we will take the ferry, but before that Balthazar will be reaching the ferry point with all those items which I have sent for. So as we go there, on my way I will tell you the details of my plan. The coach which stays for us at the park gate. So the coach is waiting for us at the gate of the park, and therefore haste away. Therefore let's hurry up. Let's move without wasting any more time. For we must measure 20 miles today, because we must cover a distance of 20 miles today. 20 miles, both by coach and then by ferry. So perhaps the distance is tentative. It may not be the exact distance. Anyway, Portia is just referring to the distance, and she says that we have to go a long way. 20 miles is about 30 kilometers, and going by coach and going by ferry, traveling in those days was not as fast as it is today. So she says that the rest of the plan I'll discuss as we are on the move, while we are moving towards Venice. So come along Nerissa, let's move. So with that we come to the end of Act 3, Scene 4, and also page 106, as you can see here. So we have done 4 pages today, and I hope I have been able to make you understand whatever is said in this scene, and also the last part of the previous scene which we have also completed today. So our syllabus for Merchant of Venice is completed up to Act 3, Scene 4 in today's class. Thank you very much.